Welcome to another edition of Around the World News for April 17th, 2017, in the year of our Lord. All right, going to be reading some more news that's pertinent to today's culture in which we live and talk a little bit about finances first. After all, anybody's crazy who thinks that money is not important. Money is like blood. Without it, you die. Hope you're saving your money as well as earning it ethically for a rainy day, saving it for a rainy day, for emergency situations, giving to those in need, not to those who just want it, like beggars on the street who beg for money on street corners, on freeway entrances and exits, just so they can support their ungodly habits of smoking and alcohol. But rather, having food and clothing, let us be content, Paul says. And the real needs are food and clothing. And some would say shelter, but what did Jesus say? Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. So not even shelter is an absolute necessity. But if you have enough clothes, it'll keep you warm in the winter. And if you have enough food, it'll sustain your body so that you won't die. Okay, here we go. We should expect all hell to break loose around pagan, and by the way, that expression, hell to break loose, is simply another way of saying pandemonium. It's an expression for those that are a little bit on the more prudish side who might think that using the word hell in this sense is bad, but rather, no, John Milton, the great English poet and writer, used it in describing pandemonium as the center of demons, and simply means where the devils dwell. So for all pandemonium to break loose means for all the demons in hell to break loose. Just to divert just a little bit here from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary of 1828, it says, in John Milton's Paradise Lost, the fallen Satan has his heralds proclaim a solemn council forthwith to be held at Pandemonium, the capital, the high capital of Satan and his peers. So Milton got the name for his capital of hell, where Satan gathered together with his demons. And pan means all in Greek, I believe, and the Latin word demonium means evil spirit, or hence demons. So nowadays the word pandemonium is used more to refer to uproar itself rather than the place where the uproar occurs. So getting back to my comments today and the newsletter, we should expect all hell to break loose around pagan Earth Day, April 22nd, and May Day, or May 1st, the high day of witchcraft for the year, also the day the Illuminati was born, the birth date of the Illuminati and communism. Witchcraft is an earth-worshipping religion. Gaia, Mother Earth, feminism, global warming, climate change, multiculturalism, communism, etc. It's no accident that my US dollar turning points cluster in this time frame too. Just look at the occult symbolism on the US dollar, or rather the Federal Reserve note, the $1 bill. Government is always religion, philosophy, infused culture applied to economics or human action. All right, I'm just going to go over some quick financial bits of information. U.S. retail sales just had their worst 2 months in 2 years. U.S. reflation is officially dead. Core CPI, Consumer Price Index, fell for the first time in over 7 years. Moscow stocks fell to 8-month lows. The U.S. oil rig count, well, we don't need to talk about that, I don't think. Over 90% of India's ATMs, automatic teller machines, are out of cash. France's youth unemployment, 24%. Italy, 39%. So why bring in invading migrants with youth unemployment this high? Moreover, robots can do the work better than this black male army of uneducated, unskilled, language void invading migrants. Invading Africans are now claiming Italy for themselves. Reading from the Quran took place in a UK church. Some UK policemen now look like bearded Muslims. It would seem that the elite globalists, Hillary and Soros, are establishing a coalition of radical blacks and Muslims in a color revolution. The Purple Revolution to exterminate deplorable white Europeans and Americans. Why don't the U.S. collectivists and socialists and communists, the leftists, multiculturalists, just open up the border and invite North Koreans in? It is, after all, the politically correct multicultural thing to do, right? War is the health of the state. Trump's approval rating just hit a 2-month high of 50%. How dare the NFL build stadium walls to keep sincere fans out who haven't paid for tickets? Where are the SJW when we need them, right? You know, this editor says that one of the great ways to survive the coming global collapse in the economy, where jobs are very scarce, is to become a robot repairman. That's it. Want to get wealthy? Forget about working on cars. Learn to work on robots. By the way, did you know that in San Francisco they now have robots that can deliver your pizza to your house or to your place of business? Yeah, look at it on Google. You see these little machines with wheels on them. A 4-wheel, looks like a little, almost a giant suitcase, propped up about maybe 2 feet or a foot and a half. And it's strolling on wheels with lights and everything. Of course, I imagine if you try to stop it, it's going to make a noise warning you to get away from it. But you cannot open this thing and steal the pizza because you have to have a code to punch in, presumably. And once you enter the code, I guess the lid opens up and you grab your pizza. Amazing, right? Well, so much for the pizza delivery men. People, they're going to be out of work. All the Uber people are going to be out of work pretty soon because all the cars are going to be remote controlled. If you're a truck driver, you're going to be out of a job too, because eventually in the near future, all the trucks are going to be remote controlled. Driverless, in other words. Welcome to the new world. The new world order. Yeah, it's a world that you really don't want to be part of too much because unless you have the mark of the beast, you won't be able to buy or sell. And whether that mark is literal, you know, engraved on your forehead or on your hand, is yet to be seen. But we are kind of part of the beast system right now, where you have a social security number, can't open a bank account without it. Most of you can't get a job without a social security number. If you go to a check cashing place to cash your check, trying to bypass the banks, guess what? The check cashing places are in cahoots with the state now too. They used to ask you for a driver's license as a form of ID. Not anymore. Not only do you have to have a driver's license, you need to write down your social security number. But I thought you had to have a social security number to get a driver's license. I think you do. You see how it's all tied in to each other, folks? You need to go to Google and type in The Beast System and by L.A. Street Preacher on Faith Writers or Carlton Pruitt, and you'll see my article. And I appreciate any comments that you might have. Just email them to carlton2061@gmail.com and see the truth of what I've written, okay? I didn't get too deep into it, but I showed that how back in 1950, 1 out of 20 jobs required a license from the state. It's a lot easier to get a job back then than it is now. As of about 2012 or 2014, 1 out of 3 jobs required a license from the state, at the cost of several $100s for schooling and everything else. So ask yourself this question: is it easier to get a job today than it was back then? No, it's much more difficult. Is the state or the federal government making it easier for you to get a job today than it was back then? No, they're making it more difficult. Hence my argument that the state is become totalitarian, trying to take control over every area of life. In other words, they're trying to play God. Because that's, by definition, God is almighty and all-powerful, okay? But today, through the fiat money system, through the creation of paper money by the Federal Reserve, they create money out of nothing, out of thin air, like God created the world out of nothing. And they create the booms and the busts, the inflation, recession, depressions, and so on. The problem is that with this whole credit bubble that's taking place, and this dollar bubble that's taking place, it's created a bubble in real estate and in the stock market and in the bond market. And the whole thing is going to come collapsing eventually. It's going to come falling down. Your pensions are going to go down with it. I don't know how old some of you folks are. Some of you folks are 75, you're retired. And so you may have your pension until you pass on from this world. But I don't even believe in retirement. Think about it. There's no biblical basis for retirement. Show me in the Bible where there's a basis for retirement. People just worked until they couldn't work anymore. That's, I think, God's position. Now, that's not to say you can't work less as you get older, but I really don't find it in the Bible, the idea of retirement, where you just sit back and collect a pension or depend upon the government for, some source of income. No. You should have enough money saved up by the time you get to be your 60s or 70s through investments and so on. But today, the average American has probably not much more than about $5,000 or $10,000 saved up, at least in cash. And they haven't done too well in the stock market, I don't think. Hence, a lot of people have taken their money out of the stock market and invested it in a business. Maybe they became farmers. Maybe they started a cherry business, selling cherries. Maybe they started a restaurant business, although that's a very, very difficult business to be successful in because it's very competitive. Continuing on. All right. I want some of you folks to start thinking about money just a little bit more. I know it's not considered very spiritual, but Jesus did speak a lot about money. And you do need it while you're living on this earth. Like I said, money is like blood. Without it, you die. All right, well, I did cover that information there. So let me go on to the next part. Pensions. Pensions are all but gone from the U.S. private sector employers. They're still common in government, particularly state and local governments, and they are increasingly problematic. They are another source of angst for retirees, government workers who want to retire someday, and the taxpayers and bond investors who finance those pensions. The mounting problems of U.S. and European pension systems are massive and on a scale that is nearly incomprehensible. The gap in confidence between younger and older Americans is at an all-time high after being minimal for many years. A survey by the Insured Retirement Institute last year noted that only 24% of baby boomer respondents were confident they would have enough money to last through their lifetimes, down from 37% in 2011. By the way, if you have a pension, or even if you have money coming in, if you have money of less than $700,000 and you're in your 60s, you don't have that much money. You may think you have a lot of money if you have 50 or 100,000 or even 250,000. It's not that much money, because unless you have money coming in along with that money. But what you should be doing probably is starting a business. Don't sit around idly dependent upon the government. If you're able to work, and I'm going to talk about the necessity for work. God commands you to work, and you can say that you lost your job. I understand that situation. A lot of people have lost their jobs, but what are you doing to find a job? And I know it's not that easy if you're older. But again, you need to seek out employment, gainful employment somehow. Don't think that you're serving the Lord if you're not working. What are you giving back to society? See, we live in a capitalistic society, right? It's like I get only because I'm rendering service to somebody and they give me something in return, and that's how trade takes place. But socialism or communism is like, it's like theft, really, is what it is by the state. And as the late Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. The socialists and typical liberals are good at spending your money. They're good at spending other people's money. They never found a tax that they didn't like. Taxes are perhaps necessary, but we have way too many taxes today. And incidentally, What did Jerry Brown, the liberal Jesuit Roman Catholic, do? What did he do? After being elected the second time into California's government, well, he just raised taxes. I think something like 12 cents per gallon, or 12 cents per gallon, because there wasn't enough money in the fund to fix the potholes in the roads and that. Well, actually, that's what the DMV fees are for. Registration fees on your automobile. And we already have taxes on gasoline. What does this show you? It shows you that our politicians are simply concocting another devious scheme to enrich their pockets. That's how they vote themselves an increase. Ah, but are you getting an increase? Has your salary gone up? I don't think so. Why? Because the pie, the American pie is shrinking as the population is increasing. What does that mean? That means each one of us is getting a smaller piece of the pie. That's what it means. Pretty soon you're going to have a little sliver. It won't even keep you alive. You know? We all want a bigger piece of the pie, so we all have to contribute more to the gross domestic product. We have to contribute more to society. But we've lost our manufacturing base, folks. Went out to China and India. Yeah. Thanks to the corporations. Stop giving your money to the big corporations. Give your money to the small mom and pop shops. You understand what I'm saying? Stop going to the Walmarts, where most of the stuff comes from China. You're not helping America that way. Stop going to Starbucks and Coffee Bean. Start going to the small mom and pop shops. They need your money far more than Coffee Bean or Starbucks. Stop going to Denny's. Stop going to Burger King. Most of the food's not that healthy anyway. It's probably laced with GMO products. It's cheap, it's inexpensive, but it's not really that great for you. I mean, yeah, if you're really hungry and that's, you know, it's not sinful. I'm not going to say it's sinful. It's just, it's convenient. That's why people do it. But probably better to go to maybe, I don't know. I hate to endorse places. They say that Chick-fil-A is a Christian company. I don't know if it is. Or In-N-Out Burger. I don't know. Even In-N-Out Burger is becoming really big these days. All right. Let's keep going. Even though the equity market has more than recovered, the compounding effect that everyone expected for their pension funds and retirement plans didn't happen as expected. If the money isn't there, it can't compound. If your plan lost 40% in the Great Recession, getting back to even in the ensuing years did not make up for the lost money that was theoretically supposed to come from that 40% compounding at 8% a year. Yeah, what happened to the interest rates? You can't even live off the interest that the banks are paying you. Suppose a widow had $100,000 in the bank. She used to get 5 to maybe 8%. That would give her $5,000 to $8,000 a year. That helps supplement her Social Security. Not today. And by the way, are you dependent on your Social Security money? I hope you're not. That might not be around in 5 to 10 years. We just don't know. We really have to get off the grid more and more, I think. We have to be self-sufficient. And when you're depending on your parents, when you're depending on other people's help for support, then you're not really independent, you see. Everybody needs to be somewhat independent, or at least interdependent. That's okay too, interdependent on a family or loved one, but what are you doing to earn that? What are you doing to give back to society, you see? That's how the system was built upon. Who is liable for public pension obligations? Probably you, depending on where you live or own property. State and local governments. Prime asset is the ability to tax their residents. We are financially responsible for the poor and or self-interested decisions of the politicians we elect. That's one reason we ought to pay far more attention to local elections than most of us do. When we have a significant bear market during the next recession, that $6 trillion figure will balloon to double